I'm 5 years old, and I find myself wearing my first suit. It was a matching replica of what my dad was wearing. Just think, classic, men in black. We were in Las Vegas at one of the most iconic hotels in the entire world, the MGM Grand, at my father's company convention. While holding my dad's hand, walking through the casino, we saw it, lit in bright lights, surrounded by people with their film roll cameras taking photos. As we got closer, my grip got tighter. And there it was, the grand prize that the casino was advertising, $1 million in $20 bills, in stacks of $10,000. Now gripping my dad's hand with all my might to get his attention. In his face, I can see the excitement that we shared. Smiling, I said next, "Pa, Dad, voy a ser millonario. I'm gonna be a millionaire." Once we made it back home to the boogie down Bronx in New York City, where I was born and grew up, I started sharing my excitement of becoming rich without having a clue what that would entail. My excitement got so bad that my mom one day snapped at me and said, "Mira muchacho, look boy, cállate, shut up." After this experience, I felt it was no longer safe to express. I isolated myself. I couldn't relate to others. They just weren't interested in talking about the same things that made this heart beat a little bit faster, that consumed this mind day and night. You see, while the other kids were sitting up straight, doing what they were told, and getting high out of getting good grades, I was daydreaming. I was doodling. I was masterminding in my mind what I deemed to be a compelling future. When I got home from school, while my sisters were doing homework, I was listening to my dad's personal development and business tapes in Spanish. Over the years, hundreds of them. What resonated about these tapes was, and what fueled my drive, was that everyone that I listened to shared how they were just like me, often misunderstood, misfits, rebels, troublemakers, the ones who saw the world differently and who weren't fond of rules. Thanks to this habit and others I would later develop, before my 19th birthday, I made my first $100,000. Before my 22nd birthday, I had broken the sales record at one of the most iconic brands in the entire world. Before my 22nd birthday, before my 25th birthday, I had helped my clients generate tens and tens of millions of dollars. And I was miserable. In fact, the moment I knew it was after leading a 2-day, all day and night business seminar, which I called Top Lion, for over 200 people who had traveled from all around the country to be there. It was the 5th time in a series that was supposed to be hundreds all around the country for thousands of entrepreneurs. And because it was in New York City this time, I invited my family because I wanted them to share this experience with me. After 2 full days, it was the closing ceremony, and I asked everyone to stand in a massive circle around this grand ballroom with beautiful chandeliers. And I asked who would be willing to share what the last 2 days were like for them. Person after person after person said, "This experience changed my life. My life will never be the same. I've been to every event under the sun, and this by far was the best." After everyone shared what they got out of this training, I looked at my dad, who was standing by the entrance of the ballroom to my right, and I see tears falling down his cheeks. And in his eyes, I saw what I can only describe as proud. And I imagine if I can hear his inner dialogue, it would have said something like, "That's my boy." In that moment, I felt something I lost when I was 9 years old. As I arrived home from school, out was walking my father, suitcase and bags in hand. I knew. I immediately dropped my book bag and ran to my dad with all my might. And I dropped to my knees and I grabbed my father's legs as I looked into his eyes as I was crying, and I said, "Pa, please don't go." I knew my parents were going through a hard time, but none of us expected this. My mother grabbed me, and without saying a word, he walked out. I blamed myself for my parents' divorce. And now here we were in this grand ballroom with tears falling down his cheeks. I finally felt I did it. Everything I ever wanted to do with my existence to make my father proud. To have him witness me having done it. The materialization of that moment we shared when I was just 5 years old. I felt the tears coming before I stopped them. And in that moment, an undeniable feeling of truth arose inside of me. And it was that I had been living my life to get my dad's love, to get my dad to come back. Every action surgically taken to show him that I am worthy, to show him that I am significant. And in that moment, I can clearly see that none of it mattered to me at all. And this was confirmed when I woke up the next day, feeling my entire body sore in every part of my body from giving my heart and soul on that stage for over 30 hours over the course of 2 days. And I remember the first thought that arose in my mind, and it was, now what? Now what? I had just done everything I thought I ever wanted to do with my existence, and I felt nothing. That's when I knew I couldn't do it anymore. That was the last time I facilitated that training. 1 week later, I find myself on a plane to a tiny island in Thailand. This is me walking away from it all. Everything felt like it was crumbling, including my identity and who I thought I was. I had to get away. Maybe this is how my dad felt when he walked away from me, my mother, and my 3 sisters. My experience in Thailand only intensified things. I literally could not focus and do basic tasks that my business required to thrive. I became a person I did not recognize and found myself in a love affair that broke me open in ways I now see were necessary but were so painful. One day I'm sitting at a busy cafe, attempting to get some work done that my team had been waiting on for weeks. And it started to rain. And when it started to rain, in walked this couple, and they see two empty seats positioned directly in front of me, and they say, "Can I sit?" Then the next word out of this guy's mouth, whose name I would later find out was Chris. He said, "It looks like you're working on something important." You can say that. And just like that, we went on to have a beautiful conversation. Now, when I say we went on to have a beautiful conversation, what I mean is we spent all the time talking about me, which is something I would only realize much, much later. And somewhere in that conversation, I asked, "What's your story? What do you do?" I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was something along the lines of, "I help people who are ready to wake up." Wake up. Looking at the clueless look on my face, he went on and said, "Basically, it's the next step from where you are now." Now, I was very intrigued. I asked him to tell me more. Well, it's hard to explain, man. It's really something you have to have a direct experience of to understand. If you feel called, I can give you an introduction section. I feel called. How do we connect? And we exchanged contacts, and I walked out. The longer I stayed on the island, the more lost I felt. During a sunset walk on the beach, I remember hearing my inner voice say, "You need help. You need help." And in that moment, I remember what Chris said, "When you're ready, just get in touch." Now I was ready, and what Chris put me through next, I cannot put into words. What I experienced that day was the beginning of discovering who I would be if my father was dead. I was confronted with questions I can no longer ignore. Who am I beyond my father's approval? What might I discover about myself? What would life demand of me? And how generous would I be with my one wild and precious life? What Chris started to teach me that day was a very simple practice: to take total responsibility for my inner world, to let go of what no longer serves me by relaxing into my heart's truth, no matter what. No matter what. Over and over and over again, especially when I don't feel like it. Whenever I was lost in my mind, wrestling with my ego to find a comfortable place to rest, Chris would have me repeat a simple mantra, which was, "I don't know. I don't know anything." Sitting there in the unknown, empty, with no desire to fix, prove, protect, fight, or even blame. That's when a drive infinitely more powerful than any other force I've ever experienced in my life arose. It whispered into my mind a question: do you or do you not want to know what's beyond yourself? Yes? Yes, I do. Now, in life's infinite wisdom, she met me by showing me where my limits were, where my openness and presence stopped, where I was seeking certainty and significance rather than growth and contribution. Going through this was the hardest thing I've ever gone through in my entire life. It was an ego's death. but I leaned into it despite the uncertainty of it all. And the more I did through how I showed up moment to moment in my life, the more life showed me it's not about me. It revealed to me how when I get out of the way, my presence can impact the web of life, and my existence matters by itself. And how to the proportion I hold this presence, I can experience what it's like to feel free from the chains of suffering. And how when I'm free of suffering, I can contribute to breaking down the walls of separation between myself, others, and how others relate to their mission. To create a more connected humanity and world through my God-given gifts, which is a whole new way to do business and build brands that matter for generations to come. Because what's business about at the end of the day? Is it about validating our own ego? Or is it about creating a dream come true result for those we have the privilege to serve? After this realization, I wanted nothing to do with this stage until I knew it would be different. Until my clarity of purpose was so abundantly clear that it radiated out of my presence so intensely that it could not be ignored. Until it was no longer about feeding this monster called my ego, which I created to meet my need for certainty and significance. Until I cared more about what the universe wanted from me than feeling safe in this fragile heart. Well, now here I am. Here I am. Was it easy? No. In full transparency, it still isn't at times. I had to give up the safety of the illusion of control, which means I had to master the terrifying act of being vulnerable. The one thing I wanted to avoid since I was 5, because it wasn't safe. To be different and to be generous. Shutdown after shutdown after shutdown. Rejection after rejection after rejection. It never felt safe to be me. And let me be clear, I don't want it to come across as if I have it all figured out. Or does everything always work out? Because it doesn't. But life is not here to be lived perfectly. It's here to be lived generously. And to me, what that means is what I give while I'm here matters. This is not a belief or a knowing. Through experience, it is my truth, as I've seen the miracles. So here's my generous invitation to all of you. If you're anything like me, and you too know you're here to be generous with your existence and a vessel for other people's growth in some way, some shape, or some form, I say, let's do that. Let's not let our past or our current awareness of what's possible limit how generous we can be with our existence. I believe part of our destiny is to align and lean into the vastness of our future. Especially when our mind says, that's not a good idea. But you know. You know. To step by step, experience by experience, become the person you've always wished to be. To get out the way and let life be generous through you. My name is Pedro, and I believe in the power of being generous.